In this video, I want to take a look at embedding a Tableau dashboard with React. React is a super popular front-end library, and it powers a lot of the web applications that we all use every day. All of the examples on the Tableau JavaScript API page actually are focusing more on getting set up with a basic index.html file and also using vanilla JavaScript. Now, in this video, what I want to do is show you how you can use React to embed a Tableau dashboard. Okay? So we'll go over a few things like what is React for those that are new to React, also how to get set up, what you need to install, and then we'll start embedding Tableau. Now, what we need to do is, in order to create a React application, I'm just going to run a command in my terminal that needs to run in the background anyway, so then I'll explain what we're going to do. What I've done is I have started here a new folder, and in this folder it's completely empty. So if I do ls, you can see there's nothing in here. I'm going to run a command, and that command is npx create react app dot. That basically means it's gonna what we call scaffold a React application in this particular folder. I'm doing a dot, so that means in this folder, but you can also give this a name, and then it will go into a folder that is called give this a name. But in this instance, I just want to do it in this one. Okay, so when this will execute, and what it will do is it downloads lots of packages for us and makes it easy to use React. Now, while this is running, let's actually take a look. And also one of the reasons I'm creating this video is that about 2 years ago now, I've created this React playground for Tableau JavaScript API. This was back when I was starting to learn more about React, and also because I use lots of Tableau, what I wanted to do is put my learnings from both inside of this little web application. So we can see here on the top, I have several of the kind of methods that you have in the JavaScript API. For example, the basic embed, and that's what we'll do in this video. This just basically embeds, well, it says basic embed, but it embeds a Tableau dashboard into a website, and it's using React. Now, if you have followed my tutorials, so I released a few weeks ago some tutorial videos about learning how to implement this with just vanilla JavaScript, then this kind of example looks familiar. However, what we'll do now is we'll use React. Now, you saw me run some commands in my terminal, and in order to do that, you need to have Node.js installed. I think I'm on the latest version, but what you need to do is just download this version, and then you can run the command that I've run. And together with Node.js, you also get npm installed, which is Node Package Manager. And that's actually what I've run, the command npx and then create React app. So npm is similar to if you use Python, in which we have pip, so pip install, and with Node.js we have npm install. Okay. Now, if I go to, let's first go here. So this is the official website of React. React was created back in 2013. It's been around for quite some time now, and it's built and maintained by Facebook. And basically, lots of web applications nowadays use this. So the Facebook app, for example, the one if you have a Facebook account, that's using React. Instagram is using React, but you can also use React through React Native on your mobile phone. So lots of iOS and Android applications use React Native. Now, a lot of the websites nowadays use React, and there's a few reasons why you would want to use React. Now, first of all, at the moment, it's one of the most popular libraries, and there are also quite a lot of other libraries out there. Also what is really good about React is that you have this thing called you building components. So React is focused on building user interfaces. So what you're actually building is several little components that together build a web application. So what you have, for example, is your buttons, your inputs, your forms, your cards maybe. Those are individual components, and together they make up a web application. Now, the website of React is quite good. It has some really good blogs, and there's a good tutorial. Documentation is great as well, and we'll look at that in a bit. Yeah, let's actually go back to see if this has finished, and it actually has. So it says happy hacking, which means that it's finished. And it means if I do LL, just to check if something's in there, we can see some files have been generated. Now, you probably wonder, why do we want to learn React if we do Tableau embedding? Well, the last few weeks and months, I've had quite a few people and customers and people in the community using, but also talking about React. And I thought it'd be really good to spend some time on this in a video. So now I've got these files. Now I want to open them in my text editor. So just gonna do code dot, which will open it in my text editor, Visual Studio Code. And we can see it opens up here. So let's take a look at what we have in here. Let me make this a little bit bigger so we can all see it. And what we have here is package.json, which is kind of your, this contains kind of the metadata about it's like the manifest file about your application. So in here we have the name, the version. This has all been generated, of course, I didn't do that. Some start and build and test scripts. So those are useful once you actually start deploying, and we'll use the start script soon. And also kind of what browsers this thing supports. And that is really good about React, because what you'll do is you'll write a specific syntax, which is called JSX. And this JSX is, as you'll see, it's fairly similar to JavaScript and HTML kind of combined, but it's not. So that means that there's a compile step in the middle. And that compile step is going through Babel, or however you want to pronounce it. And that basically turns that JSX into your normal HTML and JavaScript. Okay, so we had a look at the package JSON. We don't really need to do anything. Normally what you could do is you could install other packages and they will end up in the dependencies here. But we don't really need any dependencies. So what we then have, the big thing that's in here is in the source folder. Here we have a file called index.js, and this is the start. Now normally you don't really change too much in here. But here we can see it's importing React from React, and it's using React DOM as React DOM. And React itself doesn't what they call communicate with your HTML, with your DOM, and that goes through another package. And this is all installed for you by the Create React app. We have things like service workers, but we don't really need to think about that when we embed Tableau. Now the entry point of this application is a component called app, and it goes into the document and where there's an element of root. Now, this element refers to a file that's in public. And often what we call React is a single page application. So if I click on index.html, what we see here is something that you're familiar with. It's like an HTML page. And what we have here is a title, which we've seen in some of the other videos that I've done. And here we have the div ID of root. So everything that we're going to do, as you can see here, is going to be put into this root folder. Sorry, not folder, the root element here. And that's why the element of single page application comes, because we have one page, index.html, and everything takes place in there. Okay, cool. So that's the index file. Don't really need to do much, but let's go to app.js here. And in app.js, what we can see is lots of kind of content here. But let's actually first start our server, and the server will then create the web application for us. So if I go back to iTerm, it here tells us as well yarn starts. We could type yarn. We can also do npm run start. And what that will do is it will now build this for us. And you can see it opens my browser automatically, and it runs this on localhost port 3000. Okay. You can see this logo turning around, and we can see some content here with a link to learn React. If I jump back into VS Code, you can actually see what this is doing. So here it says edit and save to reload. And here's a link to it to learn React, which corresponds with what we have over here. So what we could do is we could say, let's take this out and say embedding Tableau. Let's take this link out. There we go. And now if I hit save, you can see the file has updated. And I go back into my browser, we can see it now says embedding Tableau. Cool. So we need to get rid of some of this stuff in order to place a Tableau dashboard in here. So what we'll do is actually, let's get rid of this whole header thing. And what we'll do is just say an H1 and say embedded analytics with Tableau. Okay, so that's an H1. What we have here is now we have the logo we can get rid of as well. We don't need to load the logo. The CSS file for the styling is being imported from the CSS file. And then we import React. So if we hit save, we can now see this app returns embedded analytics with Tableau. So if I go here, we can now see that I've removed the header and it's completely white and it has a title that is centered here. Cool. Now, you probably wonder, what is this app and how is this being rendered? Now, if I go back to index.js here, we can see that it's importing the app from ./app, which is in the same folder, and it imports that application. And this is a component. So React consists of many components. And what there's being done is they're being exported here. So every component you create is being exported and being used somewhere else. So what this means is that if you embed Tableau, you could, for example, create a Tableau component, and then what you could do is give it a URL and it could render a Tableau visualization. Okay? So you can quickly build a nice user interface for that. So what I want to do is underneath this H1, we want to use and embed a Tableau dashboard. So in order to do that, we first need to go back to the Tableau documentation, and we need to import the script tag. So I'm going to my samples. Let's go into the basic embed, and that's where I tend to grab the script source from. And because we're going to use Tableau public, we can just grab this from Tableau public. And this needs to go into the index.html file. Now, this looks like a very busy index.html file. We could actually clean this up a bit because we don't need all of these comments. So let's get rid of that. Let's rename our application as well from, let's do Tableau embedding with React. And let's also remove this. There we go. So it looks a lot better. Now, underneath this title, I'm going to put the JavaScript file. This means that it's being loaded whenever the single page application loads. So if I hit save, that is now going to be loaded every time when we load this one. So it's exactly the same as what you do with normal Tableau embedding. So let's go back to app.js. And I want to create a component that's going to build and going to display a Tableau dashboard. So I'm going in src here, and I'm going to create a new folder. And you can do this any way you want. You don't have to create this folder, but this is kind of best practice. Components, there we go. And in components, I want to create a new file. And I'm going to call this with capital T, Tableau embed.js. So we're all creating JavaScript files. So capital T, which stands that it's going to be a React component. And in here, what we want to do is we want to, similar to here, we want to import React from React. So import React from React. Then we don't need the CSS file. We need a function. So we're going to write function. And you tend to use the name of the file, so Tableau embed. And then in here, we're going to say, let's do an H2, or let's do a paragraph actually, say this is my Tableau dashboard. And now what we need to do is we need to export the default Tableau embed. So that means that if you export it, you can use it somewhere else. So this is importing React, it's a function, and it exports it. Okay. So if I now go into app.js, what I can do is I can write a comment. I can say load components, and I can say import, and I want to import Tableau embed from, and what I want to do is I want to go inside of the components folder, and in there I have my Tableau embed. Okay, so import Tableau embed from that. At the moment, it's VS Code grays it out, meaning that it's not being used. It's declared, but it's not used. So let's grab this, go into the div, and then we want to create this as a normal kind of HTML element. So Tableau embed. What this is now going to do is underneath the title, it should say, and if I go to the website, we can see here it says expect an assignment. Oh, we have an error. Tableau embed.js. Let's have a look. We need to return this. There we go. We actually, because we need to return this element. That's also being done here. We can see here there are some brackets, which we don't have here, but we could add them. They normally show up when you have multi-line components. In this case, I only have one line, but we'll see that in a bit that we'll get multiple. Okay. So that now works, embed analytics, and then here we want to have a dashboard. Cool. So the first step is to get the Tableau library, which we've already added to the index file, but we actually need to grab it, and we need to, it is on the window object. So if I go here and inspect the page, if I go here and I do window.tableau, we can see that the Tableau object from the JavaScript API is in my window. So what we could do is we could what they call destructure, and we could say constant Tableau with curly brackets equals window. What that will do is it now destructures this from the window. Okay? So then we can then use this in the rest of our components. What we also need is a URL. So we need to actually grab the URL from, let's use this dashboard. So Tableau is going to re-render. That's good. And we want to copy the link. So let's put that here. And we're going to say const URL equals. And this is the URL that we want to display. Could actually remove this part of the URL. We don't need that. Hit save, and now we can see this is not being used and that's not being used, but that's fine. The next step that we want to do is we need to display this in a particular element on the page. So if I go to basic embed, here we can also see that Tableau is using a div with an ID of this container, and it adds it a style. So we also need to have a div. So what we need to do in here is actually now we want to return multi-line. So what we're going to do is going to do a div, and let's remove that. There we go. And then we want to close that one off here. So now we can see we have a div and we have a page, sorry, a paragraph. And in here, we want to display, underneath it, we want to display a Tableau dashboard. So that's the div that we want to get it into. Now, what Tableau is doing, or what anything you do with just a normal index.html file, is that we have the container div, the URL, and the options. And what we do here is we use the this container as an ID, which you could do in React, but in React it's more common to use what we call a hook. So if we go to the docs, and actually let's search for it, because the hook that we want to use is the useRef. And what useRef does, it's allows us to, similar to when you do document.getElementById of class name, we can refer to a particular element on the page by this hook. So how we do that is we first, from React, we want to import use ref. And what we then do in here is we say, we create a new variable called ref, and we set it equal to use ref, which is a hook, and then we pass it null. Okay, it doesn't have an initial value. And then in this element where we want to put the Tableau dashboard, what we do is we say that this one is the ref equals to the ref that we have up here. So if we save, we can see this one's being used. And this means we can now use that where we want. So if I say console.log ref, go to the browser, we can now see there's nothing in our ref. So that's good. So the next thing that we want to do is in order to display something on the page, we need to have a vis object, and that needs to be new Tableau vis with container div, URL, and options. So first, let's create this init vis function. So we can go a little bit down here, and we can say function init vis, and what this is going to do is this is going to return basically a new vis for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to say new Tableau.vis, and we're going to use the ref as the first element, because if we go here, the first element here is the container div, which refers to this one, and for us that is this. So we do ref, and in order to get that one we need to do ref.current. And then after that one, let's pass it the URL. Okay. Optionally, we can also put some options, which we'll do in a bit. So if we hit save, this function has been created. It's using this div, and it's using this URL from my dashboard. I can get rid of the console.log here. But now what we want to do is whenever the page loads, we want to execute this initVis function, which will create a new Tableau visualization on the page for us. Now, in order to do that, we need to basically hook into another part of React. And the one that we want to use is the use effect hook. And the use effect hook allows us to re-render our components based on what we call side effects. And our side effect, or our effect in this case, is just the opening of the web page, kind of the loading of the page. So there's use effect. And how we use effect is as follows. We write use effect, and then we want to return it an anonymous function. And the function that we want to run in here is our initVis. But what we need to do as a second element, so the first element is the function. The second element is a list of an array, so what VS Code's called the dependency list. So that basically means whenever something in this list changes, if the property changes, it re-renders the component. Now, we don't really want to re-render the component the whole time. We just want to render it once when the page loads. And we can do that by giving it an empty array. So empty square brackets is an empty array. So let's see, we now have the following. We have the div, that's where the page will show up in here. This is the kind of the little title that we put above it. This is the URL, and this allows us to point it at that. So let's hit save and go back to the web page. And now we can see if I refresh it, we get an error message. Let's see what the problem is. On 15.5, we have a problem. So let's go there. InitVis, we actually need to execute this. So if we go back to the web page, we can see that it now loads the dashboard. Okay, kind of stretches it out, which is a little bit annoying. So what we could do is, rather than this stretched out one, we can give it some options. So if we go back into the page, we can say, and this is just the Tableau JavaScript API, const options equals, and this is an object, and we can say, let's use the device, and the device that we want to use is our desktop, okay, because I'm looking at this on my desktop. So hit save. And now in this new tableau.viz, what I want to do is I want to display this options. So I need to add that as the third part of the kind of tableau.viz element. And we say options and hit save. And now if I go back, we now see the actual Tableau visualization as a desktop. Now, the thing is, it's all being centered, and that is basically, that's Tableau public, but it's all being centered. And that is basically because in here, we have an app.css file, and it says like align everything centrally. So what we could actually do is in app.js, we could remove this CSS one, hit save, and now you can see it puts it back to the left as a default. Okay, so this was a quick introduction to embedding a Tableau visualization using React. I've been using this lots lately, and I would also recommend, if you want to see some more options, to go to this page. I'll put them in the description on YouTube. And here we have the basic embed. That's the one that we've just done. But you can also do things like where you export a PDF. So a chart is being rendered here on the page. Then you can hit export PDF. This is kind of a functionality that's in the JavaScript API. But you can then learn how to do that in React. Now, if you want to see the code for this whole page, if you go back to home, I've put a link to the GitHub page here. So if you click on that one, you should see that this is like a React application. Okay, so hopefully you found this interesting, and I'll probably see you in the next video.